The champagne glass slipped from my hand and shattered the second my mother spoke. She didn't whisper. She made sure everyone heard. More than 40 guests fell silent. My husband, Pasha, stood beside me, his hand frozen on my back. Across the room, my younger sister, Albina, smiled proudly beneath sparkling diamond earrings. Your little sister already owns a 3-bedroom apartment, drives a luxury car and wears diamonds, my mother announced. And you? You're still a complete loser. My name is Vera. I was 34 years old, and in that moment, my own mother publicly declared me a failure. Albina was 29, beautiful, dressed in designer clothes, and covered in jewelry that cost more than I could earn in years as an accountant. Champagne dripped from my fingers while every face in the room turned toward me. Some looked uncomfortable. Others enjoyed the scene. I smiled. I've learned that smiling is easier than letting people see you're breaking inside. Later that night, after the guest had gone and the wine had dulled the sting of humiliation, I found Albina alone in the kitchen. Trying to sound casual, I asked, "Tell me your secret. What am I doing wrong?" She stared at me for several seconds. Behind her confident smile, I saw fear. Finally, she leaned closer. "Vera," she whispered, checking that no one could hear us, "none of this belongs to us." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "The apartment, the car, the jewelry. Victor's company paid for everything. I thought he bought it himself." She slowly shook her head. "No. The company did." A chill ran through me. "How?" Albina lowered her voice even more. "Victor has been moving company money through fake invoices and fake contractor payments for almost 2 years. I sign paperwork saying I'm a consultant, even though I don't do any work. That's where all the money comes from." I grabbed the kitchen counter to steady myself. The glamorous life everyone admired wasn't built on success. It was built on fraud. And just an hour earlier, my mother had humiliated me in front of 40 people simply because I had chosen to live honestly. I should have walked away. Instead, I did what I'd always done. I tried to fix the problem. "You need to stop," I told her. "If the company gets audited, everything will fall apart." Albina gave a tired smile. "No one's going to audit us. Victor has powerful friends." She sounded like she was repeating something she'd heard 100 times. That night I barely slept. My mother's words echoed through my head. "Boozer, boozer, boozer." Pasha tried to comfort me, but I lay awake staring at the ceiling, thinking about Albina's trembling hands and the fear hidden behind her expensive smile. 3 weeks later, my phone rang at exactly 2 in the morning. It was Albina. She was crying so hard I couldn't understand a single word. Finally, she managed to say, "They froze everything." I sat upright in bed. "What happened?" "Our bank accounts, the apartment, the car, everything. Victor's business partner found the fake payments. He's threatening to report everything unless Victor pays him millions." She broke down again. "Vera, I don't know what to do." 3 weeks earlier, I had been the family's biggest disappointment. Now I was the first person my sister called when her world collapsed. "Why are you calling me?" I asked quietly. "Call Mom." There was a long silence. Then Albina whispered, "Mom already knows." I waited. "She told me to ask you for money." My heart sank. The same mother who had called me a loser in front of 40 guests now expected me to rescue the daughter she had always favored, with money she assumed I had quietly saved. "I don't have enough money for something like this," I replied. "You and Pasha always save," Albina said softly. "Mom said you've always been responsible with money." She said, "That's what you're for." That's what I was for. Not to be loved. Not to be appreciated. Just to clean up everyone else's mess. Without another word, I ended the call. 2 days later, my mother's name flashed across my phone. Her voice was sweet, almost affectionate, the same fake kindness she used whenever she wanted something. "Family helps family, Verochka," she said smoothly. "Unless you're really as selfish as you've been pretending to be." That was the moment something inside me changed. Not with anger. Not with tears. With clarity. A cold, calm certainty settled over me. I told my mother I needed time to think about helping Albina. What I really needed was the truth. For 4 days I quietly gathered evidence. Old invoices Albina had accidentally shown me. Login credentials she had never bothered to change. A forgotten flash drive she had left at my apartment months earlier. I copied everything. Contracts. Bank transfers. Emails. Names. The deeper I looked, the worse it became. Then my mother invited the entire family to dinner. "We need to discuss how we're all going to help your sister," she announced, speaking as if I had already agreed. When I arrived, I wore my best dress and my calmest smile. Albina sat at the table looking pale and exhausted. Victor avoided eye contact completely. My mother looked delighted, like a queen preparing to announce a royal decree. The moment everyone sat down, she cleared her throat. "So," she said proudly, "Vera has decided to be a good sister and help fix this unfortunate misunderstanding." I slowly placed my phone on the table. "Actually," I replied, "I came to return something." Before anyone could ask what I meant, I pressed play. Albina's voice filled the room. Every confession. Every fake invoice. Every shell contract. Every fraudulent transfer. Every detail. The room went silent. Forks froze halfway to mouths. Faces drained of color. My mother's smile disappeared instantly. Victor shot to his feet. "What is this?" he shouted. I looked at him calmly. "The truth." "You recorded her?" "No," I said quietly. "I simply listened. Something none of you ever bothered to do when it came to me." No one spoke. For the first time in my life, they had nothing to say. I picked up my phone, slipped it back into my purse and walked toward the door. Behind me, my mother called my name. Once that voice could stop me in my tracks. Not anymore. I stepped into the cold night air and kept walking. For the next week, I allowed myself to feel everything. The years of comparisons. The constant criticism. The way I was expected to solve everyone's problems while being mocked for living responsibly. I cried. I grieved. And then I stopped. Because grief eventually fades. Purpose doesn't. I wasn't interested in revenge. I didn't want screaming matches or family drama. I wanted something stronger. The truth. A truth that couldn't be explained away at the next family gathering. I thought carefully about each person involved. Victor cared about power and reputation. Albina cared about appearances. My mother cared most about her image. So I made a plan. First, I contacted a forensic accountant I trusted. I gave her every document I had collected. Days later, we met for coffee. She reviewed the files one final time before looking up at me. "Vera, this isn't a simple mistake," she said. "This is major financial fraud." I nodded. "I know. You could report this today." "Not yet," I replied. "I want everything done properly." Next, I arranged a private meeting with Victor's business partner, the man who had already discovered the missing money. I brought copies of the evidence. Nothing emotional. Nothing dramatic. Just facts. When he finished reading, his face turned pale. "Why are you giving me this?" he asked. I folded my hands. Because protecting family shouldn't mean protecting crimes. After that, I spoke with a journalist I knew from years earlier. I didn't leak names. I didn't make accusations. I simply confirmed that a fully documented report would soon reach the appropriate authorities. Facts would speak for themselves. 3 weeks later, investigators arrived at Victor's company with a warrant. I was at home making dinner when Pasha's phone buzzed. A local news alert flashed across the screen. "Construction firm under investigation for financial fraud." I read the headline twice. Then I quietly set down the spoon and exhaled. For the first time in months, I felt peace. An hour later, my phone rang. Albina. She was crying so hard her words ran together. "Vera, please," she sobbed. "Did you do this? Did you do this to us?" I listened until she finished. Then I answered calmly. "I didn't create any evidence." Silence. "I didn't invent any crimes." More silence. Finally, I said the words she needed to hear. "I just stopped protecting you from the consequences of your own choices." "We're going to lose everything," Albina cried. "The apartment, the car, all of it." I closed my eyes for a moment before answering. "Those things were bought with stolen money," I said quietly. "I know this hurts, but they were never truly yours." She burst into tears and ended the call. 2 days later, my mother called. For the first time in years, her voice wasn't proud or demanding. It was frightened. "Vera, please," she begged. "Talk to the investigators. Tell them it's all been a misunderstanding. You're the smart one. You always know how to fix things." There it was again. The smart daughter. The responsible daughter. The one they ignored until they needed someone to clean up their mistakes. "I'm not fixing this, Mom." A long silence followed. "This time, someone else has to face the consequences instead of expecting me to carry them." "You'd really let your own sister go to prison?" she asked. I took a slow breath. "I'd let the truth be told," I replied. "Those are two very different things." Once the investigation began, everything moved quickly. Victor was formally charged with fraud, embezzlement, and falsifying company records. Albina also faced charges because she had signed the fraudulent documents, although her lawyer immediately began negotiating a reduced sentence in exchange for her cooperation. The luxury apartment was seized. The expensive car was taken. The jewelry disappeared into evidence lockers. Everything my mother had proudly shown off at her anniversary celebration was now listed as property connected to a criminal investigation. I hadn't taken any of it away. The truth had. Months later, Albina asked to meet me at a small cafe. She looked nothing like the confident woman who had once worn diamonds and designer clothes. She looked tired. Older. Honest. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. Finally, she stirred a cup of coffee she never touched. "I keep thinking," she said quietly. "If you'd just given us the money that night, none of this would have happened." I almost smiled. "Albina," I said gently, "the company was already falling apart long before I knew the truth." She looked at me. "I didn't destroy your life. I just stopped protecting the lies that were already destroying it." She lowered her eyes. "Mom still says you ruined this family." I nodded slowly. "Mom also called me a loser in front of 40 people because I chose to live honestly." I paused before continuing. "I didn't ruin this family. I simply stopped being its emergency fund, and its silent witness." Neither of us spoke after that. For the first time in years, there was nothing left to pretend. Then life surprised me one more time. 6 months after the court case ended, the journalist I had quietly contacted published a feature. Not about Victor or the scandal itself, but about people who report financial crimes before they become even bigger disasters. The article explained how early whistleblowers often protect innocent employees and reduce the long-term damage to businesses and families alike. Albina's full cooperation helped her receive probation, restitution, and no prison sentence. Victor wasn't as fortunate. His role in the fraud earned him a much harsher punishment. As for my mother, she called me one evening. Her voice sounded different. The pride was gone. So was the certainty that she had always been right. "I was wrong about you, Vera," she said softly. "Years earlier I would have waited for an apology. I would have wanted her approval. I needed neither anymore." "I know," I answered calmly. There was nothing else to say. After we hung up, I looked across the room at Pasha. He smiled. I smiled back. For the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to prove my worth to anyone. I already knew it. And in that quiet moment, I realized something that no apartment, luxury car, or box of diamonds could ever buy. I had never been the loser. I had simply been the only one brave enough to choose honesty over comfort. That was my victory all along.